All right. Here we are. Hey, Dalton.
We are both sick today, but we are rallying, and that's all that matters.
Hell yeah. It's our first show of 2024. Bitcoin ETFs just got approved today. Prior to the show, it took us like 30 minutes to like get on here and hit the record button because I've just been staring at the charts like this. Like, what is happening? Like,
Okay, well,
guys, sea of green. Like,
wow.
my God. I know we're going to talk about the Bitcoin ETF in a bit, but just
Dude, up only.
up only right
Okay,
now.
now, okay. The one real token that everybody cares about here. How's Popcat doing?
Mm. Dalton, we're looking good. Popcat is over $11 million market cap. Not to shill my own bags, but first cat coin to $1 billion. I'm ready.
Okay, well, keep us posted on it. Halfway through the show, I'm going to ask you again just to see what's going on,
I'll
okay?
just be over here. Oh yeah, do it. Do it. Disclaimer, guys, nothing that we say is financial advice. And obviously there's a lot to cover with the market and everything that's happening. So I think, Dalton, we just want to jump in and talk about where market attention right now is for NFTs? Because there's some
Yeah.
interesting stuff happening.
One, of course, we took a couple weeks off just with the holidays and everything like that. And I think that one of the things that surprised me the most was like coming back here and just seeing how we have had like a continued downtrend on ETH NFTs. We had a few pumps here or there. Like I know DGod's pumped to like 3.6 or 3.7. They're back at 3 ETH.
Mm-hmm.
Bored Apes.
Mm-hmm.
Bored Apes have absolutely dumped. So mutants are down at their all-time low, and ETH. Bored Apes have gone from what 30 ETH to like 22 something. So that is just like a continued downtrend, and it's pretty interesting to see this ETH NFT market, just ETH in general. Now we have like the ETF news, and ETH is starting to pump, but I'm wondering, is this where we start to see a reversal on ETH NFTs? Like, as much as I shit on ETH for gas prices and stuff like that, like, I think that people are starting to dance on graves, like myself included, where I'm just like, ooh, Bored Apes at 22. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a bottom here soon. So yeah, that's basically what I've been paying attention to over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, the other thing too with like just regards to Yuga, I feel like we've definitely seen a lot of like Yuga OGs come out on the timeline. I know Other Side recently put out a trailer that was pixelated. Like people have a lot of grievances with what Other Side um put out, but I think it's the big thing that I'm kind of thinking of is like, will Yuga continue to remain dominant as ETH NFTs, specifically Bored Apes and Mutant Apes? Because right now it's not looking like it. Like, what is the future looking like for the collection? I also know there are Blur farmers that are no longer providing like blend loans on
Mm-hmm.
Bored Apes, which I think I don't have the NFT stats tweet, but I
It
saw like
was it was CBB.
or,
CBB was the big lender that decided to pull his liquidity over there.
yeah.
I think that this is also interesting because I know that this week Blur nerfed one of the top two blend farmers or Blur farmers in general because they were
Mhm.
just dumping and pumping each other's bags. I think CBB actually posted something about like what if the Blur farmers actually had to provide liquidity for projects that they wanted or that they thought were healthy enough to provide liquidity in. If Blur were to make that move, it would make things a lot healthier in the ecosystem because basically, just as this is going to NFT stats' point, right? Since Blur farming started, there has been incentivized liquidity that did not want to own those things. So then if Pudgy
Mhm.
Penguins pumped and then went to 11 ETH, then like the Blur bids kind of trailed that, right? And then people that were like, okay, cool, I'm going to take advantage of this. This is at 11 ETH. I'm going to dump into Blur bids here. Then those Blur bid farmers are stuck holding something that they do not want. So I think that that's just something that in the beginning, when Blur kind of announced their Blur bid farming and everything like that, incentivized liquidity, a lot of people came out and said, oh, this is going to make the market so much more efficient. That hasn't happened because
Mhm.
people with a lot of money have come in with like the incentivization of the Blur token and it hasn't worked, right? Like NFT prices have been murdered pretty much across
Yeah.
the board. So if Blur somehow makes a pivot here and like does listen to some of these top Blur bid farmers, it'd be pretty cool. I think it would make the ETH NFT ecosystem a lot healthier.
For sure. For sure. And I think on top of that, I think a lot of folks are now starting to turn their attention towards Azuki and the couple of announcements and speculations that Azuki has had. And,
Give it
you
to
know,
us. Give it to us.
you know me, like with my elemental, but like as someone who is in the Azuki ecosystem, this is so exciting to finally see. So basically today, Azuki actually just announced they're going to be creating an anime anthology series. For those of you guys who don't know what anthology is, it just means that every single episode within the series is going to be a completely different story, different characters, with one of the most renowned anime directors now coming on board to Azuki as a creative producer. So this guy has worked on One Piece film, the One Piece film Red, as well as like Code Geass and a bunch of other big name animes. And then, so like massive announcement coming out today. And I think this is like an announcement that everyone in the garden has been waiting for. And there's a lot of hype. But even prior to this, there was actually this tweet from this company called the Web3 Foundation that just says, towards an open anime universe powered by anime token. A lot of us are speculating, could this be Azuki's anime token? I think, you know, this font is like an Azuki font. This is an Azuki red. So there's been a lot of speculation. So we've seen beans pump. We've seen Azuki start to show some life on the charts. So I think a lot of eyes are on here. I need to check the leverage on Blur. Can you look at what the blend loans are on Azuki right now?
Azuki.
You're giggling.
Yeah, well, I just see a lot of dots. I don't know. I don't know how to read this has been so confusing to me. I see a lot of dots like going up.
Let me see. Let's see what the loans are. Okay, this is nice. So a lot of these loans are not for more than the floor, which is
Okay,
great.
so this line in the middle is the floor currently.
Yes. Yep.
And then this is just LTV. We're basically just reading LTV here. So like what is
Yep.
that? 5.7, 5.8?
Yep. And then left is interest. And then like this is APY,
The rising, like the
yeah.
dots at the top.
Yeah. Like these loans look
So
healthy. This is actually kind of
well, so what
nice.
is LTV on that? LTV would be like 70%, 70 to 80% loans are now starting to rise in liquidity or rise in interest rates. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Just a
I
few.
feel like that's about the same as like traditional peer-to-peer kind of platforms. Like 70 to 80 is kind of like, all right, we're starting to get risky. So I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's funny, dude. This is something that I actually really enjoy about working in NFTs and just crypto in general. I'm like, I spend every single day looking at charts, reading as much as I can, whatever, right? You asked me to look at the Blur loans, and I'm like,
What?
bro,
You're like, wait,
I don't
what?
even know how to
Well,
read this.
in all fairness, like the way Blur displays their blend loans is like
Not
weird.
great.
Yeah, it's like not great. It's pretty hard to get a good picture of what's going on from it. Something that Eddie and I would talk about a lot. And then, oh, go ahead.
I do have a quick question about that anime token. What is
Mhm.
that looking like? Has it launched? Like, do we have a contract address? Nothing.
Nothing. We literally just have an X account that a few like Azuki has retweeted, and that's it. And this like one post.
I'm like, dude,
So
I'm about to go like Dex Tools.
you just search for
There's
anime tokens.
well, because like that would be huge. Like
Mhm.
anime verse. Yeah, I'm not seeing
I
anything.
think I know there's a lot of folks in the garden that have been waiting for Azuki to drop a token of some sort, especially because what we've had ApeCoin, Meme, Meme
Gods.
Land, DGod's Dust, and so it's something that a lot of folks are demanding, and I kind
Mhm.
of get it, but at the same time, it's like I don't really know what the purpose of the token's going to be. But hey, if it comes out, I'm fucking stoked. That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for your expertise on Azuki's because I don't have that.
I'm really excited to see how the anime series goes because I think to
Mhm.
me that's personally more interesting of like how will this IP be leveraged? Azuki's big thing is like how do we build a decentralized anime brand like alongside our community. And it's like, I have yet to see a project, maybe with the exception of Pudgy Penguins, that's like really allowed for their holders to, facilitate the world building, if that makes sense. So
No,
we'll see.
I think what you're talking about there, especially we've talked about IP before on this pod, and it's like IP is such an important part of certain collections, right? Like with Pudgy Penguins, it makes sense. Now, if
Yeah.
you're talking about like Milady or something like that, like I don't necessarily care about the IP of Milady. Like I think that that's just way too degen for that to really matter. I could be wrong there, but I think Azuki is one of those that it leans more towards Pudgy Penguins, and we've been kind of sitting here waiting, like, okay, so what does Azuki actually do?
Yeah.
So if they really hit this out of the park, they have like the animation series that sounds right up their alley. Launching a token with that, and also with Pudgy Penguins speculatively kind of launching a token as well, like that could be really interesting.
It's going to be fun. See, I think that might bring some life back to ETH NFTs.
100%. 100%. Cool. Well, let's pivot a little bit. Over the past, I would say 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I have started looking more and more intensely at ordinals. I missed the boat on Bitcoin puppets. I also missed the boat on node monkeys. But I think as we're talking about ETH NFTs and kind of this kind of situation that we have with ETH NFTs, like it's just not moving, right? And people are like, okay, like that meme, like, come on, do something. Like that's kind of how we feel about the ETH NFT world. Ordinals and Solana NFTs have kind of been the outliers here, right?
Yeah.
This was Node Monkeys minted for $1,200 just a few weeks ago, I believe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And what is really interesting here is like Node Monkeys and Bitcoin puppets have kind of taken this role of more mainstream Bitcoin ordinal NFT collections, right? They are spreading out the ordinal maxi kind of niche, and these are now kind of getting into the ETH NFT people, the Solana NFT people. I see Twitter profiles that are mainly talking about Solana NFTs that are now talking about Bitcoin puppets. The same thing was happening with Node Monkeys. I think this is a very interesting topic that, especially now with like Bitcoin ETFs and everything like that going on. How do you think ordinals kind of develop over the next couple months?
So I have not purchased an ordinal yet. And Dalton, maybe let's zoom out a little bit because my basic understanding of ordinals are inscriptions on the Bitcoin blockchain, and there are stats that you could basically hunt for. So you can actually sats. How do you say it?
Satoshis.
Satoshis. Yeah, stats. Oh no, fuck. This is the ESL. This is, you know how I told you?
I'm sorry, I'm here
Like
laughing at you.
sats.
Yeah, sats.
Yes, sats.
Like the SAT with an S.
Yeah, but I
Okay,
keep
cool.
adding an
Whatever.
extra T, whatever. The sats, basically you can mint or I guess inscribe on specific blocks on the Bitcoin blockchain. And certain sats are more rare than others because they have various cultural significance, whether it was like the Bitcoin pizza sats, or the first block, right, of the chain.
69 or something like that.
Yeah. I feel like I could see ordinals picking up more steam. I know there's a lot of folks that have also been chatting about like DeFi on Bitcoin. I think like for me personally, beyond holding Bitcoin and like in all honesty, exchange wallets, because that's where I first got exposure to it, I've always just felt a little intimidated by entering into the Bitcoin ecosystem. It's like a completely different wallet system. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, of course. So like this is the main topic right now, the topic of discussion within ordinals with these two collections specifically. Node Monkeys minted for $1,200, and I believe I have it in the notes here. Node Monkeys are 83K to 111K inscription numbers. So like they're relatively low, which is the reason why they have a much higher floor. So the floor on Node Monkeys is 8,400. The floor on Bitcoin puppets is 1,500. There's a lot of like heat being given to the Node Monkeys team about the fact that they minted for $1,200. And then Bitcoin puppets was like a $10 mint. and now they're at 1,500. So there's a lot of people that are like, oh, Bitcoin puppets did it right, this, that, and the other. Okay. First off, node monkeys are 83K to 111K inscriptions, right? Like that's relatively early. Like it is early, right?
Like,
Bitcoin puppets is 53 million. 53 million. So like that's a huge gap here. Now I'm not taking anything away from Bitcoin puppets. Like I think they've been hilarious. Like they definitely like scratched this itch that people have. They're like, this is kind of funny. Now you have like the ETF history kind of coming, like integrating into this. So I think that could be bullish for puppets and things like that. So, but they are very different, right?
yeah. But is it fair to say that like a huge part of like the value when it comes to ordinals is really, for me it sounds like it's kind of based on provenance. What block are you on? And like,
Yeah.
is that the main thing?
See, and this is where early on I was I pulled a Derek Edwards, right? Derek Edwards talked about like writing about Chromie Squiggles and not buying any of them. I did the exact same thing with BRC20s, Ordinals. I was like sitting there tweeting about it. I was like, oh, this is the shitcoin market we've always wanted. Didn't buy anything, right? Didn't mint anything. I just sat on my hands. So my initial thesis on this was just like, dude, I don't really understand what the value prop is here. Now, for one Satoshi, like something being inscribed and all of that, like it does carry an inherent value on chain versus off chain. Like there's no IPFS or anything like that. Like this is on the Bitcoin blockchain. But then Bitcoin maxis were like, that's like graffiti on the blockchain. And I'm like, okay, well, graffiti's kind of cool. Like, I guess, like there, I can
Damned
see
if you do and damned if you don't, basically.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and like the altruist, like traditional Bitcoin maxis are going to be like, dude, this is slowing down the chain, this, that, and the other. Whereas other people are like, I think that the social flex of owning ordinals is going to be really big. Like if you have a collection that is, I don't know, like you own a Bitcoin ordinal that is worth like hundreds of thousands of dollars, that's badass, right? Like I
Yeah.
can understand. That's the same thing that happened to ETH. And ETH wasn't on chain. Like they were like IPFS, JPEGs that you owned something that got you more things, whether it be airdrops or whatever, getting into this community. So that said, I think that there are some massive hardships with ordinals. Like building on Bitcoin is super slow. Like you see like this 163 buys pending and shit like that. I'm like, this is not how it's supposed to be. Like you're
Yeah.
buying something and you're just waiting. You're like, hope I bought it. So like I think that some of that is also really interesting, but does that add to the lore? And that therefore makes it more expensive because people are like, yeah, like I'm trying to buy and sell this thing and I don't like how do you market make NFTs on Bitcoin? Like it would be tremendously difficult, right?
Yeah. I guess you
I don't
kind
know.
of don't. You kind of don't.
Exactly,
You're
which is
like,
like which is a positive, I guess, right? So then I don't know. This is something I've been going back and forth with, and I'm super interested now that I'm like deep in the game, and I'm just like sitting here researching everything. So actually, tomorrow I'm minting my first Bitcoin ordinal, which I'm pretty
ooh.
pumped about.
Well, let's see if you actually get the transaction to go through. Like,
I'm
you let
excited.
me know.
Yeah, no, I think it's a cool, whether they be Bitcoin ordinals or BRC20s. Like I do think that this is a leveraged bet on Bitcoin, similar to how we flip NFTs to make more ETH. Ordinals and BRC20s are a way for us to make more Bitcoin, right? And we'll see if it works. Like I still think that things are pretty decently priced for like how big Bitcoin is. I don't know.
We'll check in on you next week and see how your mint goes,
Yeah.
and you can give the whole rundown.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
excited about it.
so switching gears a little bit of like the last show we did, we talked a lot about predictions, what, Tang and Ben saw for 2024, what we saw for 2024, and kind of just recapping 2023. We are now in 2024. Before we like get into like what we feel like we can expect to see for the rest of the year, we need to talk about the shit show that happened yesterday with the SEC, as well as ETFs finally being approved today, which was pretty awesome. Let me see if I can. Oh, it's just so good, guys. It only feels appropriate that this happened literally right before Bitcoin ETF got approved. So, in case you live under a rock and you missed it, The SEC's Twitter account yesterday basically put out a tweet being like, all Bitcoin ETFs are approved. And then went and started liking a bunch of degen tweets and engaging and interacting with it. And the TLDR here is the United States government got SIM swapped, where their Twitter account became completely compromised. Gary Gensler had to come in and provide a comment here. This was just hilarious. I feel like I live in a movie.
Well, so this is where the verbiage here makes me think that this was like actually the tweet and somebody just sent it early. But then Gary comes out and he's like, yeah, no. Like, that's not what we did. And I'm like, so did we get SIM swapped or not? And like the US government, that should not be a problem, right?
Yeah.
And then like Bitcoin like rips to like 47, 48K. Then it like Darth Mauls all the way back down to 42. And then it like regulates back at 45. And I'm like, oh my God. And then the rest of us are just sitting here like, okay, so now what happens?
And
And
well, now the ETF is approved and it's back at 47 with like,
and this is like, was this planned? Like, I feel like this is just a massive psyop, and people are just like the government's just laughing about this the entire time.
well, it's funny because I know before we got on the show, and I would love for you to go a little bit more into this, like a lot of what I was thinking about, especially because in December we saw such a massive like influx of like shit pumping, especially on Solana.
Mhm.
But it was like, are ETFs priced in? Because everyone's been talking about ETFs being approved for years now, arguably, we can say. But like there were some news about it last month. And now that it's here, I mean, we're seeing price movement. What do you think, Dalton? Does it go higher than this? Do we see a drawback, a pullback?
Yeah. I don't know. So this is what we talked about on the last show, was basically saying how everybody was like, okay, ETF gets approved and then it's a sell the news event. And I'm like, I don't like, we all said the exact same thing. It's sell the news event. And I'm like, I don't know if it is anymore, right? Because we keep talking about it. And then if I know Sam had NFT stats had posted about this before, like the gold ETF, like when the gold ETF happened, gold went up only. And so like, yes, there was like a tiny sell off that day, but then it just got instantly bought up and then it was up only. So I'm really interested to see kind of what happens to Bitcoin. Now we have the Bitcoin halving coming up in 2 or 3 months. And like that is a huge catalyst. And that has traditionally been the catalyst for bull markets. So I'm like, we have a Bitcoin ETF. Then we have ETH ETFs coming out in 5 months or something like that. There's like a deadline for that, like the Van Eck ETF.
Yeah.
So I think that we're going to see like a lot of liquidity that was sidelined for a long time, just end up being like people are trying to get a good price here, but I don't think that that's going to happen. Like, I think a lot of us are sitting here like, all right, like the game's beginning and now we're just going to see a massive influx of volume.
Well, it just goes to show like no one knows what's going to happen in this market. I mean, the first time that we met, I think we were talking about how we both shared the same sentiment that it's like, oh, we got like another year in the bear, like it's gonna be a minute. And now here we are in January, and it's like, oh shit. Like, I kept joking, like I'm wildly underexposed. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But
It's all good. No, I think that's something that we're going to continue to see. Now, what becomes interesting to me is like traditionally we've seen Bitcoin dominance absolutely soar, and then other platforms kind of tank during that time, or maybe not necessarily tank, but like they don't move with Bitcoin. I'll be interested to see if that kind of happens again, right? Like, does Bitcoin suck all the liquidity out of other tokens just so that people can go into like true Bitcoin? Is there an influx of volume into Bitcoin Ordinals and BRC20s? Like, kind of what is the game plan here? And so, like, for me personally, I have a couple big mints coming up. I have a couple plays that I'm like trying to see through, and then I'm going over to Ordinals. Like, I think that just makes sense because that's a leverage bet on BTC, and if BTC rips to 6 figures, I don't know. Like, I think that becomes like a very big time conversation, and we're going to see multiple $1 billion NFT collections and multiple $1 billion market caps and BRC20s. Like, that wouldn't surprise me, right? Because there's so much on-chain value on Bitcoin.
Yeah, for sure. The other big thing that we were talking about specifically within the NFT finance sector of like what we can expect to see this year is the rise of perps and the rise of like more complex products beyond lending and borrowing. While I still think, to be clear, if the bull is back, lending and borrowing protocols are going to be absolutely like dominating in terms of TVL, in terms of like outstanding loans. I think we're just going to start seeing people cycle through um, and really pump that volume. And so on the perps note, though, it was actually pretty cool. What last week you and I were both on the phone with Wasabi, and they casually just mentioned, "Yeah, we pushed our perps live to mainnet today, but we haven't tweeted about it yet." And so perps are now live on Wasabi, which is exciting to finally see something different than just like the call options. I think I told you about this. Like call options, little confusing to me.
Yeah, very
Perps where
confusing.
I can see long, short, like how much leverage do you want to use is fantastic.
Yeah. No, and I think I know Ben and I used to do weekly shows as well, and one of the things that we talked about was within 12 to 18 months, I think, and this was now like 6 months ago, so now we'll say 6 to 12 months. 6 to 12 months from now, I still believe that NFT perps flip spot NFT volume. Like now it's going to be very difficult to kind of figure out that how that works, and we're seeing people iterate on it right now, right? We have NFT perp coming out next week with their V2, which is going to be like a fusion VAMM. You have Wasabi. And so NFT perp is on Arbitrum, which is an ETH L2. And then you have Wasabi that's sitting on the actual like ETH
Mainnet.
mainnet, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that becomes like another interesting conversation because like how do other NFT fi protocols integrate that? Like, and I don't necessarily like before I was like, ooh, like too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing where like NFT perp, Wasabi, yeah, Tribe 3, which Tribe 3 has pivoted a little bit to RWAs. Now Wasabi's going on ETH mainnet. Then you have NFT perp. And then you have Sujiku doing cross chain on Solana. Like there's so many different ways to get exposure to NFTs now. It'll be really interesting to see how some of these other NFT protocols kind of integrate all of these different protocols. And I don't know, like I think it becomes an interesting conversation, allowing people to get like exposure to NFTs or blue chip NFTs, whether they be Chromie Squiggles, CryptoPunks, Bored Apes, whatever. They can get exposure for $5, you know, and if that's something that they want, especially with leverage, I think it becomes like a really blooming or a possible blooming ecosystem. Yeah, mint or mute, mint.
Thank you. Do you think that obviously there's a lot of folks that have been building and working on perps quite a bit, but do you think that flooring protocol, them coming out like quarter 4 of last year, kind of like added some fuel to the fire with actually being able to have like fully backed underlying assets through their Mu tokens?
Yeah. Well, and when we were on that call with Wasabi, they're basically integrating
That's how they're doing their perps.
right,
Is
right, right.
yeah.
So they're like buying and selling like fractionalized positions in using flooring protocols, Mu tokens. And that is how, like, because in the past we've seen huge sell-offs and huge buy
Mhm.
opportunities when the perps were just run off of an oracle. So basically before it was PvP, right? Like there was no actual movement on the market. So like if somebody came in and had a huge 10 ETH buy on BAYC on NFT perp, that would shoot the platform price way higher because like there was
Mhm.
actually no integration into the market at all. Right. And so then people would just be going back and forth on that. And they did this thing with a funding rate where people were trying to like, they're trying to incentivize people to take the other side of the trade. But at the end of the day, it was PvP. And if somebody had more money than you, then they can liquidate you. And it was a game of chicken all the time. And so now they're coming out with a Fusion AMM, which is going to be a little bit different. I'm excited to see kind of how their V2 comes out. And like, I'm going to be playing with it as soon as it launches. And then you also have Wasabi over here on ETH mainnet that is now going to actually have like these perps be backed up by something. Like they're
Yeah.
actually going to be backed up by positions on flooring protocol. Now, the big problem here to me is again, fucking gas prices. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is not going to be for somebody that wants to put $5 on a BAYC 5X long, right? This is going to be treated as a settlement layer for NFT perps. it becomes interesting. Does like NFT Perp come out and say like, yes, we're going to partner with Wasabi, and then they're also going to back up their thing via Wasabi? Like that becomes like a very, very interesting conversation. And then Flooring Protocol and FLC token and all of that is all going to get integrated. And then you have this beautiful flywheel, but like it's going to take projects like really integrating with each other. And I think that
It's
could be a big boom.
it all depends on like, I think everyone in the space says it when they're like collaboration over competition, but
Mhm.
everyone says that, but we all know everyone is also a very competitive builder in the space. So I
Mhm.
think you nailed it on the head there. And I think another conversation that's definitely going to be coming back this year that we can expect a lot of back and forth on over the coming months are royalties. Like we talked about it earlier, like Yuga dominance, kind of, waning, losing a little bit of it, but now, they are working with Magic Eden to try to make like a royalty enforced market on ETH. Do you have any thoughts on this? Do you care for it? Like
I
where
think royalties are kind of a scam, but that's because like I'm not a builder in this space. Like at the end of the day, royalties are the easiest way that collections can collect money, right? Like
Mhm,
you just like you could literally with royalties, if there are enabled royalties, a collection can come out and put like a hype tweet, and that's going to pump price, and then there's going to be a dump in price because people are going to take advantage of the profit, and then the collection is just collecting free royalties basically. So they aren't really doing anything, and this kind of plays to the hype cycle and all of that kind of stuff. And I don't think that it makes, I don't think royalties protect like
creators?
investors at all. Like I
Yeah.
think creators take advantage of it, and then that's that, right? And we're always going to speculate. That's what we do. But I think it would be really cool to see some of these NFT-fi integrations kind of happen at like the collection level where they can, and the only ones that are really doing it right now, like Sappy Seals, Pudgy Penguins a little bit with collection on
Mhm.
liquidity, and then Milady. And those are the
Yeah.
only three collections that are really kind of leaning into this financialization of NFTs. And I want to see more of that. Like, I hope that both of us are deep in this space. Like, I think that we should call out to collections and kind of show them the ropes on like how they can build, whether it be liquidity provisioning or taking advantage of flooring protocol. There are ways that collections can make money. They just need to get smarter. And I
Totally.
think that one thing that we have seen is like DeFi folks are way more like curious about getting deep in the weeds on things. We're going to talk about like some airdrop farming here in a little bit. Like there are some different ways that people can take advantage of this and like be curious and turn over rocks. And that's how people make money. Now, if collections and builders kind of took advantage of this and kind of took to heart kind of what DeFi has done and like, oh, let's turn over rocks and not be lazy. I think collections could make more money that way. But at the end of the day, it's just not something we've seen.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a really interesting point of like, what does it look like when collections start looking at other means for revenue streams
Hmm.
and taking advantage of like the native tools that are here and like helping
Hmm.
the infrastructure and builders that are here. Like the thing with royalties for me, I always kind of like when I first started looking at NFTs, like royalties were the big flag that everyone was waving. Like artists can finally get paid and you listen to the arguments for pro and against royalties and the big one is always like, well, if you're a well-known artist and outside of web3, you sell your piece at a gallery, you never see a cent of that.
Right.
But now we're taking like this royalty argument and conversation and applying it to collections that have literally raised hundreds of millions of dollars, whether that was
Hmm.
from mint, the royalty fees that they've collected thus far, or if they've raised from VCs. And
Hmm.
so I kind of agree with you. And ultimately, at the end of the day, like I hope that art NFTs, if we can figure out a way to enforce royalties, that's a massive win for art NFTs. But these are ultimately financial tools for
Hmm.
anything outside of that. Like
Well,
PFPs to me are like a battleground testing ground of like, can an NFT transact, hold, and be a store of value
mhm.
and be a financial instrument? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and I think to be fair, like the infant or what the very famous tweet from Kobe, right? Like NFTs are just shit coins with JPEGs. Like I think that that is spot on, right? And I think PFP should be traded like that. Like there are people that are good at maintaining like hype and things like that, like Azuki now with this like animation series that's coming out, Pudgy Penguins like pushing Walmart sales and things like that. That becomes very interesting. It's like, fuck yeah, I want to buy that because like the community's like badass and like people are building things and whatever. Now, I'm not going to say that, but there are companies that have not done that and they have not capitalized on it, right? And so I think that they should be traded like shitcoins. That said, like I think that there are some really interesting opportunities coming up. Like, have you heard of Frame?
Yeah.
The new blockchain that's like enable or royalty enabled. That becomes an interesting conversation. Do a lot of projects wrap their NFTs and then send them over there? Like, do they pull a DeGods and like port over to Frame? I don't know. Like, we could see a mass exodus of ETH NFTs over to Frame and see kind of what happens there. But then the big argument this entire time has been provenance. It's like provenance to be on ETH, bro. And I'm like, yeah, no. Like, because now we're wrapping and we're going to a different blockchain because royalties enablement, right? And I think that becomes like, it's all fun and games until somebody gets hurt, like my grandma always used to tell me. And now collections are getting hurt because they're not collecting their free money, and then they're like, "Oh, well, provenance doesn't matter." So let's go over to Frame. And I don't think I'm bullish on that move, right? Like I think people need to be better and like try to figure out different ways of making money.
Yeah. I like that. Note to all the builders: go explore some liquidity opportunities with NFTFi.
Well, I will throw one other builder in there who's actually minting tomorrow on Ordinals, Dada. He is in charge of Forgotten Runes as well. They do a very good job of pushing like the liquidity provisioning and things like that. So shout out to Dada. He's building some really epic stuff, and like good luck with your mint tomorrow. That'll be pretty huge. That's actually a sub 1K inscription. So like that, I think that they're doing an ascending auction. So the minimum bid is going to be a Satoshi, like 0.000000001 Bitcoin. And then all the way up to 0.2 Bitcoin. And then if you do 0.2 Bitcoin, I think you're almost for sure to get one.
Oh, wow.
I think so. So like 0.2 is like what Node Monkeys are sitting at right now.
Yeah.
Node Monkeys were like 83K. This is sub 1. So it becomes something to pay attention to, right? Like I think that could be like a pretty explosive collection over on Ordinals.
Is that the Ordinal collection you're minting tomorrow?
No, I wish. No, well, not hating on Rupture, but Rupture is somebody that we talked about on the Solana, Ben art. Yeah, the last show with Ben. I minted a Solana or a Rupture piece like 13 months ago. And that actually got me a whitelist to his Ordinal piece. It's like 210. It's a 210 unique one of ones that he's putting on the Bitcoin blockchain. They're minting for 0.025, which is like $1,200 more or less. So I'm really excited. That's like 210 one of ones. Good timing with the Bitcoin ETF. Like push it to 10,000. That'll be kind of cool. So
love that. Should we jump into some builder news? Because there's been a few announcements from quite a few NFT protocols over the last week. So obviously we talked about it earlier. Wasabi has released perps. Arcade, which is one of the leading peer-to-peer lending platforms, has also started to tease out what we can expect from them in 2024. I'm actually really excited by quite a few of these things. Like V4 sounds like it's going to be massive. And the thing that I already feel about the peer-to-peer lending protocols is like each one has its own like feature sets and reasons why you would go there. Like Gandhi, really easy auto financing, refinancing, I should say. Also, I think Dalton, you correct me if I'm wrong, but like, isn't Gandhi also interest rates based off of how long you have the loan? Or yeah. Okay, wanted to make sure like got that right. Looks like Arcade will be adopting some of that as well with their prorated loans, partial repayments, which is cool. Looks like multi-chain support. I wonder if they're coming to Solana or where they're going next.
Damn. That's actually crazy. No, I haven't.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
That's actually crazy.
I
need to talk to Renato, bro. Renato, hey, I'm going to slide into them DMs real quick. We're in like multiple group chats and this guy has not told me any of this. So
Should also,
next week I'll have a better idea.
yeah, I should also hit up Toast. The arcade team is
They're
awesome.
awesome. They
We
are
love
awesome.
them. We do love them. I'm curious if it's going to be Solana or another EVM. Like, do they go to Base? I feel like the top chains on everyone's mind are like Sol, Base,
AVAX.
maybe, yeah, AVAX.
I actually talked to the AVAX team this week, and they are pushing some really cool stuff. And they're also leaning into RWAs.
Mm,
I know that they're like the main PFP over there is Dokyu, which
mhm.
has been pretty successful. So that I don't know very much about AVAX. I think Eddie is somebody we need to get Eddie on the show eventually, but I think he could give us the
Alpha.
hops on the plots over there.
Hell yeah. So basically, Arcade, massive announcement. Speaking of RWAs, enabling RWAs at scale.
What does that mean?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Speculating
I
with
read
you.
that and I'm like, okay, so what does that mean?
Maybe
Does this mean like
marketplace?
pooled? I think one of the big unlocks for RWAs is going to be pooled liquidity. Like if you could pool liquidity that to like incentivize people that have a Rolex at home, if
Mhm.
they could go into a Rolex pool and be like, okay, I could pull 60% LTV on this, like yes, I'm going to do it, right? And I
Yeah.
believe that the watch market is anything is more stable than Bitcoin, isn't like ETH and shitcoin and things like that. So I'm assuming it's way more stable than that. So like a 60% LTV loan against a Rolex should be kind of easy to figure out, I feel like.
You know, I kind of was thinking the same thing, but I feel like the more I learn about the luxury watch space, the more I'm like, is that possible? Because how these watches are valued is so across the board. Like there are no real oracles yet. I think there's
Mm,
this company called Watches.io, which is like
mhm.
working on basically pulling together all of the pricing data around watches, but it's still fairly new. And
Right,
granted,
right,
I
right.
love Jake. I've like seen the platform. I think it's great, but it's like how battle tested is this? Are these all the right sources? So I
I
don't
would
know,
be
but
really interested to hear more about that because I think this could be potentially a huge unlock, whether it be watches, sneakers,
real estate.
collectibles, comics, exactly, real estate.
Yeah,
Like if we can start figuring out Web 2 oracles or Web 2 items with Web 3 oracles, that would be really interesting. And there'd be a huge unlock of liquidity,
for
right? Like we do have
totally.
lenders in the space that would definitely prefer lending against something that is stable, right? Like especially if the APRs are nice. Um, that'd be cool. I need to chat with Watches.io. I haven't spoken to that team at all.
Oh, I will happily connect you
Cool.
if you haven't met Jake yet. Also, VC activity is finally picking up. It turns out that VCs still had some dry powder on the side and didn't completely run out of money last year because, as anyone knows, especially if you work on the protocol level in this space, VC funding dried the fuck up. No one was writing checks for anything. I think everyone was scared. Granted, we just had the FTX fallout and just like Black Swan event after
Mm.
Swan event. But huge shout out and congratulations to the Gandhi team who has just raised a new round. I don't have the details of the round. It didn't look very hard, but I was like, oh, this is cool. There was also who
Gandhi,
else?
one thing I wanted to talk about Gandhi is like I
Mhm.
think I don't have the stats on hand. I would have to pull up the Dune dashboard. They, I believe, just crossed 10 million in outstanding debt, and
Oh, wow.
I think they flipped Meta Street on outstanding debt.
Um, that's a massive milestone. I'm gonna
No,
look
I
that
know.
up.
I just talked to Berga this morning.
NFT
He's a
line.
beast, bro. Gandhi, this is another hot take for 2024. I think Gandhi is one of the leading, like if not the leading peer-to-peer NFT lending platform by the end of the year. Those guys they're monsters. And what they have coming down the pipeline, I think is going to be big time.
I mean, this is pretty massive considering they just launched what a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like this Dune is 11 hours out of date, but
When
9.5 million.
they're at 9.5, I can't see it. I'm staring
Yeah,
into the light.
yeah. It's
Yeah, so
this
he said that they crossed 10 million
10
in outstanding
million.
debt, which is crazy, right? Because Gandhi flipping Meta Street And the stuff that they have coming down the pipeline, I just think that Gandhi is by far one of the platforms to pay attention to. They are
Wow.
beasts, like they're continuously building. And yeah, I'm really bullish on that team.
We love to see it.
We should
Love.
get Berg on here. He'll drop. Actually, what we need to do is an NFT lending marketplace wars. That's what we need to do. We need to get them all on here. Bring on Arcade, bring on Niftyfi, bring on Gandhi, bring them all on. And I just want to go like toe to toe. We'll
You
ask
know
all the hard
me.
questions.
We've
I
been
think it'd
joking
be
about
awesome.
this. We should make it happen. I'm sure, but I feel like we have to add like some sort of fun element into it.
No, battle royale.
No.
I want to just, I say this all the time in my calls. I'm like, yo, I'm so sorry for being this honest, but I have to ask this question. And I think having an ambiance like that within a podcast would be really fun.
All right. Let's call up the troops. We'll hit up the NFT Illuminati group.
Let's do it.
I just have a feeling if we get everyone's just going to be very polite to each other. You're going to
No,
have to like stir the
I'll pull it
pot.
out of them.
Oh.
Trust me, I would love that.
Another NFT 5 platform, which to be fair, well, actually, to be honest, I've looked at their platform, haven't actually played around too much with it, but Essie also raised a round or just closed on a round, just announced a round, which is pretty cool. Might need to
They're
look
like,
into this more to see what they're actually doing on the financialization side, because the last time I looked at the platform, it was like raffles, which is cool, like more gamified NFT acquisition. I don't know if that's the right phrasing.
one stop liquidity solution for sellers. Yeah, like I spoke on a Twitter Spaces with them just a while ago. I don't know the team very well at all. I know Jose or Joe from NFT Perp was on there as well. It's something to pay attention to, right? Like they reached out to me and they seem to be building a lot. And if they're raising money for this NFT-fi kind of vertical, I think that they're definitely somebody to pay attention to because the ecosystem is very small. So,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, but like this is mostly raffles from what I'm seeing, like testnet raffles. So I don't know. We'll have to get the alpha before they go on mainnet and see what is up. Also, Sharkify on Solana is raising.
That is one thing we should pull up here. Do you have the Wolf Capital tab?
Yeah, let me
have it.
let me.
So one thing that I find really interesting about Solana NFT lending versus ETH NFT lending. If you take out Blend, which Blend is obviously like a huge player in the NFT lending space, but it is mostly gamified and incentivized liquidity. So if you were to take ETH NFT lending minus Blend versus Solana NFT lending, Solana tops ETH NFT lending like week over week over the past month and a half. And so I think Sharkify has around 65 to 75% of the market share over there for the time being. And they've been like that for the last like year and a half. Like they've been relentless with kind of community building and things like that. Citrus is another one to pay attention to. And also I believe Banks. That was like, I believe that's the same team as Fract. And it's cool to see Solana NFT lending really kind of blow up. Now, that said, if Arcade is porting over to Solana or any of these kind of top ETH NFT market or ETH NFT lending marketplaces, it would be really interesting to see if the Solana NFT holders kind of stuck to their guns or not. And that said, like on Sharkify, dude, the APRs on Sharkify are ridiculous. They're like fixed rate 7-day loans for 180% APR. It's actually wild. No, it's crazy. Like I have friends of mine that have just been printing, lending against Mad Lads and Tensorians.
Wow. Wait, borrowers actually paying those interest
dude,
rates?
they've been doing it the entire time. There is no such thing. I think Citrus is the only one that has like longer loans. They're like 30% loans, but the interest rates are the same. It's like 180, 150, and people pay it. So that's where I'm like, I think if Arcade or Niftyfi or one of these teams did port over, maybe the reason the interest rates are so high over there is because like, like the
Limited lenders.
volatility on Solana NFTs is pretty intense. Like Tensorians have been ranging from 112 to 82 SOL in the last week. So
Yeah.
like there is reason why like LTVs are like 60, 70%, and the interest rates are super high because the lender is taking on a bunch of risk. So I don't know. I think Sharkify does have like a pretty solid hold over there, but it would be interesting to see like one of the ETH big dogs go over there and kind of throw their hat into the ring.
Mix it up. Well, the other thing too is like, I'm sure we'll see quote unquote blue chip NFTs rise out of the Solana ecosystem.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like the lending landscape will probably completely change depending on how liquidity inflows into Solana.
Well, and it was just today that Tensor and Mad Lads announced a partnership. We don't know anything about it. It literally was just posted 4 hours ago. It just says soon, and it's the two logos, and then them saying that they're collaborating. So I don't know if that is something to do with the token, something to do with the backpack wallet. Like nobody knows anything at this point, but it is nice to see kind of that would be the equivalent of Bored Apes and Azuki coming in at the peak and just saying like, all right, yeah, we're going to collaborate on something. Like that would be huge. So it is kind of cool to see the Solana ecosystem and the big time NFT collections really kind of partner up together.
Yeah. We're almost at the hour, but I think to wrap it up, Dalton, we want to switch gears and talk about some DGeni airdrop farming opportunities.
You first. What
All
are
right, all right.
you looking at?
So there are a couple of things that I'm farming because I've entered into my farmer oh God, era.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Obviously I have money bridged over to Blast, which is sitting collecting points. I have Blur tokens that are also sitting collecting points, which is great. But since you red pilled me into Solana,
You're
I was
welcome.
like, yes, thank you. It's been really fun. I've been doing like a little loop between MarginFi and Camino, which are lending platforms on Sol, not
Mhm.
NFT specific, but you provide liquidity, you can borrow, think like the Aave of Sol, if you will. So I have a little system going back and forth between MarginFi and Camino, and then Parcel. Ever since you were started talking
I
to me
love
about
that team, dude.
Parcel, like their app is so cool.
So good.
It's
It's so good.
like UX UI is super clean. I think it's like fairly under farmed, and the fact that you can like I really love airdrop farming, specifically airdrop farms or airdrops that reward people that are interacting with the platform because you actually get to explore and
Mhm.
play. And like I think that's the best way to learn in this
100%.
space is just get in there and like see what happens. But like I'm longing and shorting the housing market right now, and I'm providing some liquidity and I'm getting some points for it. And there's definitely like this psychological thing where like every day I just like check it just to check it.
Mhm.
You know what I
That's
mean?
cool. I think that Parcel team is they're bringing something on chain that we haven't really had exposure to. So I
Yeah.
think that could be big time. That being said, I think the other day I checked, there's like 60K people that have been providing liquidity over there. So that I'm not super bullish on because like how big could that airdrop really be? I don't know. That being said, like I think if you're going to farm it, I would definitely recommend getting an HOA, the Parcel NFT, and then kind of like Jen is doing, like trading the housing market. Maybe get some leverage action in there.
Listen, sir, I am in like the top 6,000 wallets, almost the top 5,000 wallets.
I would bump that up. Those are
I
rookie
plan
numbers.
on I plan
Those
on
are
being
rookie
in like the
numbers.
top like 500
There we
and then
go.
eventually
There we
top
go.
100, you know,
There we
like
go.
slowly but surely. After Popcat comes back,
After Popcat, what is Popcat at right now? I'm saying
uh,
9 million, 10 million.
9.4
Okay.
in
So
the middle.
here's
You're
your
close.
drawback.
You're
Cool.
close.
Well, thank you for sharing. It's also really nice having you over on Solana because like even like Camino Finance and MarginFi, I haven't been playing around with that. I haven't been looping anything. I've been kind of focusing on other areas. I will be receiving Jupiter at the end of the month, which I think is going to be a huge airdrop that I do plan on buying. Just because like I think that if history repeats itself, like Jito was a massive airdrop. and Jupiter is used by literally anybody and everybody that does trade on Solana. So I think that that could be a massive, massive, massive pump in terms of just like usage, new users coming over. Like I think that that is going to be, and they have 4 rounds of airdrops, I believe. So like being able to farm the future airdrops is going to be big over there. So use the DCA tool and like the limit buys and stuff.
But
And
hold
then
on. Speaking of Jupiter, I do just have to say that platform blew my mind away. As like
really,
someone who has mostly used Uniswap to
Mhm.
do all of my swapping, to go somewhere and to be able to just like on chain set limit orders, do the DCA features, like it is just so feature rich. It's
Mhm.
like why isn't something like this on ETH? I don't know, maybe because it's super expensive to transact.
There you go. I was going to say Solana's for the poors. No, so I do think that paying attention to that Jupe airdrop is going to be big time. Like that, if it launches, so right now I think it's sitting between like 70 and 80 cents is like the pre-drop market for Jupiter. That's a pretty high FDV. But that being said, like Jito was a pretty high FDV, and I don't think that there's going to be any token unlocks in 2024. So like I don't know. That's just what I'm doing. Again, not financial advice. It's just how I'm playing it. Other things that I'm paying attention to, I have to say OX Omnia from the Protectorate team red pilled me on Tia Celestia. So I had zero exposure to Cosmos. I don't understand Cosmos. I didn't understand the wallet. I've never bridged. I've never done anything with Cosmos. I've spent the entire fucking week bridging to Cosmos.
Wow.
So it has been really cool to kind of see what's been going on over there. I don't know if you're familiar with the Dimension airdrop that just happened. So I received a bunch of Dimension from actually owning and staking a Tensorian and then also using
Nice.
Wormhole and stuff. So that's been cool. But that was kind of the first intro to like, okay, what the hell is TIA? Because
Mhm.
TIA stakers, people that had one TIA staked, TIA is right now like $15, $16. One TIA staked got 250 Dimension. Dimension was like priced at like $7.50, like the pre-market drop kind of market value. So
Wow.
that's crazy for staking
Yeah.
$13 and then all of a sudden you're getting that drop, right? So that kind of like perked my ears up. And then you have the Manta airdrop coming up. And the
Mhm.
Manta airdrop for Celestia stakers the snapshot has not been taken. They've publicly announced that yet. So, and this was just like 6 days ago. So that's something that I'm definitely paying attention to. I made a Kepler wallet and I made multiple wallets. So I'm going to be kind of trying to hit the minimum on some of this stuff and like really try to farm away on this with multiple accounts, because I know that there was one person, I believe NFT Stats kind of pointed them out. They had one soul staked in 23 wallets for Jito and they made like 600K or something like that. So that was huge, right?
Yeah.
Something that I'm kind of paying attention to, and I'm bullish long-term on Celestia. So I think that it being at 15, $16 right now is like a very easy access point to get some TIA staked in different wallets. My game plan is I have Celestia that I'm staking natively. And then I also have their LST, which is like the Jito of Celestia, which is called Milky Way. So then they have Milk TIA. So I have stake TIA and then I have Milk TIA, which is like the liquid staking token for
Mm.
TIA. So I have like at least 3 of each in multiple wallets. Is that enough to hit the minimum? I have no fucking idea. So don't listen to me. This is just what I'm doing. Like I would put probably at least a minimum of 10 TIA and 10 Milk TIA into things. But it's kind of interesting because like Milk TIA stakers have yet to receive these airdrops because they're not natively staked. So like the Milk TIA stakers have missed the Dimension airdrop. They've missed these other airdrops, but there is like rumors that there are at least 14 airdrops coming to Celestia stakers. And that, dude, airdrops could be nothing, right? It could be like $10.
Yeah.
That
But
being
it could
said,
also be like 600,000
yeah,
bucks. Like
well,
you never
exactly. If you
know.
if you
Yeah.
if you hit something like a Jito or something like that, that becomes like a big time opportunity. So that said, do your own due diligence, like pay attention to it. But like Milk TIA and TIA are 2 things that I am farming heavily because like I think this Mana airdrop is really underfarmed. And they have announced that it is going to go to TIA stakers. So getting some of that action, I think, would be worth it.
Yeah, they Manta closed their bridge though, right? To do the bridge over.
Yeah, but they
Yeah.
haven't taken the snapshot on Tia. And I don't know if they closed the bridge. I haven't bridged any ETH over there. So like I could completely miss this one.
I'll have to look at that. I have a link. I have a referral link if you want it.
Cool.
Because I thought they closed on the 31st, but you know me, I was too busy popping,
Oh
Popcats.
God.
I don't know. I need to rotate into some stuff with fundamentals and not memes.
Yeah. Well, no, look, at the end of the day, like my entire thing that I'm thinking about is just like, okay, we have Celestia now in the Cosmos ecosystem. I have Solana exposure. I have Doge exposure. I have Bitcoin Ordinals exposure. And then I have ETH exposure. I'm like having exposure to all of these different ecosystems that's how you win. And let me tell you, fucking starting a Kepler wallet and opening multiple wallets was a massive fucking pain in the ass, like a massive pain in the ass. And so, and like each wallet has different seed phrases, and I'm like writing all this shit down. I'm just like, dude, this is a pain in the fucking ass. Now, that is where you make that barrier to entry is where you make money, right?
Yeah.
So
You do
I don't
that.
know.
You do the little bit of like hard work required, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, Jen, thank you for pushing through. I know we're both not feeling very well, but it was nice to see you.
It's good seeing you too, homie. Next week I think my brain will be a little bit more
Let's go.
clear, hopefully. But I hope you feel better too. And guys, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. We're gonna get back at it. You can expect to see us every week.
Next week, let's do it again.
Let's go. All right. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Bye.